Now let's simulate a different action. We will clone the existing remote repository. Next, we will try to update the remote repository with the changes we made in our local repository. We will also try to update our local repository with the changes that, for example, someone else might have made to the remote repository. Of course, we will do it on a very simple example. So let's see what we got here. As you can see, it's our Balloon B project we did a couple of videos back. I just added a simple README file to it and pushed the whole repository on GitHub. Now we want to clone it and create a local repository back on our computer. What we need to do in this case is to click this code button. We can see we have the clone option right here. We will use the HTTPS protocol. We can also open it with a GitHub desktop app or simply download a zip file with the whole repository in the archive. But we are interested in this first option. All we need to do is to copy this URL, for example with this copy button, and go to our Visual Studio Code. I created a new folder on my desktop, which is called Balloon B Project Cloned, and that's where we would like to clone our remote repository from GitHub. Let's open our terminal, View, Terminal. Now let's type git clone command and paste the URL we just copied from GitHub. We can now, for example, name the folder we want this repo to be in. If we won't place anything here, the default repo folder will be created here. And if we place a dot after space, all the files will be downloaded directly to this folder I'm in. So for example, we know we are in my Balloon B project clone folder. Now, if we leave this comment like this, inside this folder, Balloon B project cloned, will be created original folder from GitHub with that repository. If we now place something like this, for example, a new name, this repository would be downloaded to this folder, which is folder 2 in our example, which would be in my Balloon B project cloned folder. But if we place a dot after space, we will download all the repo files directly to this folder I created, which is Balloon B project cloned. So that's what we are going to do right now. Let's hit enter. We can see we downloaded all the files directly in my created folder before. So now we successfully cloned the remote repository and synchronized it with our local repository on our computer, which we can check like this. With the git config command with the list flag, let's hit enter and let's scroll it down to see exactly those lines. We got our remote address, which is remote name origin, which is the default one, and the URL to our Balloon B project on GitHub. It's the same address for the fetch command, which is the pull command in Git, where we can see remote, the name origin, fetch, and it's the reference to the same address which we can see above. We can also see that our branch master refers to our remote origin, which is exactly what we want. Let's hit Q on our keyboard to leave this list. Let's clear our console. Let's check something else. Let's hit enter. And you can see those familiar commands. You can see our remote repository is settled automatically. We got the name origin, the address related to this name, which is our project on GitHub, command fetch, and the same situation with the command push, where we have the same name, which is origin, and the address related to it. As I said before, fetch is used for the pull command and push is used for the push command. Let's clear our console and let's check something else. git remote show origin. Let's hit enter. And we can see all the additional info. We have the fetch URL, which is the address to our project on GitHub. We have push URL. We see that our head indicator is on branch master. The remote branch is also master tracked. And all the additional info you can check. I just show you this so you could know that when we clone a remote repo from a GitHub profile we are logged in, our local repo is automatically synchronized with it, so you can push and pull the changes back and forth between these repos with no problem. You can upload the changes from your local repo to your remote repo and download the newest versions of the remote repo with some changes that were made by your coworker, for example. So let's go back to our project. Let's go to our style CSS file. Let's change the font size of the H1 tag, for example, to 5 rem. Let's save the changes. We can see our file is modified. Let's go to GitHub overlap, the Git overlap, sorry. Let's commit these changes. Update H1 font size. Let's commit it. And let's try to push these changes to our remote repo. Let's go back to our terminal. Let's clear our console. And let's see if it works if we just put the git push command. Let's try it out. Let's hit enter. And it probably worked because our repos are automatically synchronized. But let's check it out on GitHub. Let's go to our project. Let's refresh the page. And here we can see our style CSS file has been committed with the commit message update H1 font size. And it was 1 minute ago. So everything worked exactly perfect. We can of course check this commit by clicking on it. And we can see exactly what changed in this file, where we have font size 4.6 rem and we changed it to font size 5 rem. Now let's go back to our project page, just like this. And now let's assume that our coworker makes some changes in the project. We will simulate these changes working directly on GitHub with our remote repo. So what we are going to do is change the README project. We can click this pencil icon, which means the edit mode. Let's click it. And let's put some changes in it. For example, something like this, it doesn't matter. Let's commit these changes. Let's leave this default commit message, which is update readme md, which is perfectly fine for us. We commit it directly to the master branch. We don't want to create a new branch, so let's just hit this button, commit changes. We can see our readme file has been updated. Let's go back to the main page of this repository. We can see our updated readme file right here. We can also see that our file has been updated with the newest commit, with the update readme md commit message 28 seconds ago. So our remote repository has been changed. And now let's pull these changes to our local repository. Let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. Let's clear our console. And since our repos are synchronized, all we need to do is to place the git pull command. That's all it takes. Let's hit enter. Let's close this file. Let's go to our files overlap and check our readme file. You can see it has been updated with the changes we made in our remote repository. Now I want to show you something else. Let's close this README file. Let's go to Style CSS once again. And let's change the font size of H1 tag to 6 rem, for example. Let's save these changes. Let's go to our Git overlap. Let's commit these changes. Change H1 font size to 6 rem. Let's commit it. And here, being on Git overlap, when you click these 3 dots, you can see you can do the pull or push command directly from the graphical interface. So let's try it out. Let's do the push command from our graphical interface. Let's click it. Let's check if it worked on our GitHub profile. Let's refresh the page. And we can see it worked perfectly fine. We got style CSS file with our newest commit, change H1 font size to 6 rem, which was made 1 minute ago. So as you can see, these are very basic and general things needed to work with Git and GitHub. But if you need GitHub to put your repositories there and upload current changes to them, if you create your portfolio on GitHub because you are looking for your first job in IT, I hope that the knowledge I provided in this course was useful to you. But that's not over yet. Let me take your time for a little bit more.